Morning glory and evening grace, America. Listen. Hear that sound? For whom is the bell tolling? It is tolling for legacy media. And I think perhaps this is the, if not final tolling, the penultimate tolling. I want to set the stage. I've been in media since 1990. I've been on the radio since 1990. I started my television career in 1992 for KCET, the local affiliate for PBS, and did the nightly news Monday through Friday for 10 years for KCET. Been doing radio and syndication since the year 2000 with Dwayne and Adam, and Harley's been here a long time. We've been doing this a long time. I've written for every major newspaper. I've been a columnist for the Washington Post, the Weekly Standard, the Washington Examiner, you name it. I've written for them, and now I write for Fox News. FoxNews.com. I have a column up today that I'll mention in just a moment. My show reaches millions of people every day. Got a YouTube channel. Hope you'll like and subscribe. Tens of thousands of people every day. My X account's got 250,000 people. It's not giant. Mostly it goes to influencers and conservatives. I'm happy. You name it, I do it. And I am a news junkie, and I always have been since I was a kid. And we had Time magazine. I'd read it cover to cover. And I know who's good on the left and the right and the center. Like Ruth Marcus at the Washington Post. Probably the smartest lefty I know. They teach us stuff at Harvard Law School, and she worked the beat at DOJ when I was a young kid at DOJ as a special assistant, and she was a young reporter. She's so smart. I listen to Ruth. I read her takes. I don't always agree with her. Nick Kristof is a kind and generous man. I disagree with him all the time. His writing is superb. His journeys through the third world and Africa are usually inspirational. A Path Appears is one of the better books I've ever read. I know who's good on the right. Mark Thiessen, my old colleague at the Washington Post. Jim Garrity and I overlapped at the Washington Post for a little bit. Jim has been a regular on this show for as long as I've been on this show. I know who's excellent to work with in television. I said goodbye to Lester Holt on X this week because I thought Lester was a consummate professional. I've enjoyed working with Jake Tapper and Dana Bash and Wolf Blitzer. I like a lot Chuck Todd. Chuck's politics and mine don't agree, but Chuck's very, very smart and has forgotten a lot. And when it comes to sports, knows a lot more than I ever will. Kristen Welker, enjoyed working with her on the debate. So I really try and get along with everyone. I know what is good. I know what is good practice. And I don't rag on individuals, even with whom I disagree. If they're a former colleague, that's bad form. But 3 stories happened in the last 24 hours I want to bring your attention to. First of all, the White House Correspondents Association is upset because the Guild, and it's a quasi-monopoly, an aristocracy of legatees, it's legacy media, is upset that they're no longer going to decide who's running the press pool. Now, the press pool, by the way, is not a question of being other than just the facts man. They always travel with the president wherever the president goes, and they just tell you what's going on. They're not supposed to have opinions. But opinions been sneaking in, and they've been covering and not covering stuff. So they got told by the White House, we're no longer going to let the press pool pick itself. And oh, my goodness, Eugene Daniels, current president of the White House Correspondents Association, who just quit Politico, which is a gossip sheet of the left, to go and join MSNBC, issued a blistering statement. It suggests the government will choose the journalists who cover the president. Of course it doesn't. That's ignorant. In a free country, leaders must not be able to choose their own press corps. And, of course, Trump's not doing that. They're picking the pool reporter, which is just the facts man. Since its founding in 1914, the White House Correspondents Association has sought to ensure the reporters, photographers, producers, and technicians who actually do the work 365 days a year decide among themselves how rotations are operated. Well, that's changing, because that's not actually in the Constitution. Now, the press room didn't exist until 1970 when Richard Nixon covered over the swimming pool to create it. The White House Correspondents Association was started in 1914. The Oval Office and the rest of the West Wing, including the press room, was built in 1907. We're not talking about a constitutional crisis here. We're talking about legatees, legacy admissions. Thought we were against legacy admissions, right? Legacy admissions to the press room. But it's a good gig. And a lot of those journalists aren't journalists anymore. They're actors. Now, I want to make a key distinction. Some of the finest journalists in the world work in that room. Steve Holland of Reuters. the straightest up, old-fashioned news guy I know. I've traveled with Steve abroad on a White House trip. He's a joy to be with. Just the facts. If you read Steve Holland's byline, he's the guy. Mark Knopfler, I used to love him. Knopfler, when he would do the what's his name? He would do the ABC News feed. I think he was terrific. Just the facts, man. But it's black letter law. All right, I've been teaching the First Amendment for 27 years. Black letter law means nobody disputes this. It's a limited public forum, meaning that only so many people can get in there, and they're subject to time, place, and manner restrictions, and the people who set them up, provided that they are viewpoint and content neutral, you get to be in there, according to the White House. But they do not have to let you in, and they do not have to let you pick the pool. And they can change it up because there are millions of journalists in the United States. Everyone on X is a journalist. Michael Kelly, the late, great Michael Kelly, was a friend of this program, used to say again and again and again, journalism is a craft. It is not a profession. There's no licensing board. I'm a lawyer. I'm licensed in D.C. and California. Everybody else out there, not licensed. Well, Mark Levin is licensed. Mark's a very good lawyer. There may be some other lawyers in the press room I'm unaware of. But they're just craftspeople. And some are better than others, and some are the best, and some are the worst. It's a bell curve. It's not a crisis. And claiming that's a crisis is silly. Second, Jeff Bezos owns, as in owns, the White House, the Washington Post. Yesterday, he announced that the paper's editorial pages were changing, and they were going to be in favor of free markets and personal liberties. Bravo! That's the Constitution. Free markets and personal liberties. My friend David Shipley, and he is a friend. He didn't hire me. He kind of fired me, but not really. He was in financial straits, and so my first boss, Fred Hyatt at the Post, hired me to write weekly, and David Shipley said, we don't need you weekly anymore. And so I was very, very sympathetic to the financial straits the Post found in it. So I'll go down to 12 times a year. I'll write 18, 20 times a year. I don't care. I don't need the money. I just like writing for the Post, and that was fine. I quit, though, unrelated to David Shipley. David Shipley's a good guy. But when Jeff Bezos, who owns the newspaper, and I lost $300 million last year, which is one of the reasons I said to David, sure, I'll renegotiate with you. You guys you're bleeding money. David Shipley quit. When the owner says, do something, you can quit. David Shipley did. I applied, by the way, online yesterday. I said, this is my application, Jeff Bezos, to return to Post Opinions as its editor. It would take me about 6 weeks to make it interesting and dynamic again. This morning I added, update, no call from Jeff Bezos yet. I'm sure he's weighing among the benefits my knowledge of the talent pool, and my arrival would trigger the resignations of many of the people that he wishes would just leave anyway. It's unionized there. So that's number two. The upheaval in the White House Press Correspondents Association, the upheaval there. Then the Wall Street Journal this morning. Mystery disease linked to bats kills scores in Congo. I read. Subhead. Illness raises concerns that more diseases are spreading from animals to humans. Kampala, Uganda. A fast-spreading mystery illness linked to bats has killed scores of people in the Democratic Republic of Congo, with nearly half dying within 48 hours. The disease, which causes uncontrolled bleeding, vomiting, diarrhea, and other symptoms of hemorrhagic fever, has infected 1,096 people and killed 60 as of February 23rd. The disease was discovered in 3 children in the village of Boloko in remote Equator province last month. Children vomited blood, suffered nosebleeds, died within 2 days. A few weeks later, a second and larger outbreak was recorded 100 miles away in the village of Bumate, where hundreds of people are ill. Some 141 fell sick with the illness in a single week, the WHO said. This could be a new virus that has never been discovered, said Matteo Bassetti, professor of infectious diseases at Italy's University of Genoa. The WHO and the Congolese are still figuring out how the disease is transmitted. Now we come to paragraph 7. The outbreak comes as President Trump rapidly reverses U.S. policy on leading global health and relief work. He announced on his first day back in office that the U.S. would withdraw from the WHO. All right. I took to Twitter, X. I said, look, this is the second strike. One more of these. One more evidence of Trump derangement syndrome in your news pages, and I'm done. I'm going to the Financial Times. And Gerard Baker, who's been a friend of this show, been on this program a few times. Fine writer, extraordinary writer, Oxford man, American citizen, naturalized like Charles C.W. Cook, very smart guy, snapped back at me. I realize this is intended, like almost everything you write these days, Hugh, as primarily fan service for your followers. But pretending to take it at face value for a moment, is the Financial Times really more to your liking than the Journal? That's fine. That's a snide remark. But like Hyman Roth, this is the business we've chosen. I'm used to it. And during the break, I'll give you my response to Gerard. And I invited him on, by the way, today. Not sure he's going to take it up in hour number 3. Stay tuned. So I'm back now to finish my little monologue on why the bell is tolling for legacy media. Gerard Baker is legacy media. He was the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal. So obviously, he's defensive about his newspaper falling apart in the news coverage. The pages are still great. I go back to Vermont Royster and My Country Time. I like Robert Bartley. I love Paul Gigot. I read their paper every day on the opinion pages, and I used to read the newspaper. The news was the news. But if I'm reading about a new outbreak of hemorrhagic fever, and in paragraph 7 they jump to it, the implication it's Donald Trump's fault. That's what it is. I just say, I can't take this much more. I'm going to just drop you. I'm down to news items by John Ellis, the Free Press. I subscribe to those 2 things, the Wall Street Journal and Financial Times. Those are the only things I pay for. You get everything else for free. There are podcasts galore. News items covers the waterfront. The Free Press covers the waterfront. The Journal and the Financial. But I'm not going to pay for garbage. This is a garbage report. Gerard Baker comes at me. Yeah, I realize this is intended, like almost everything you write these days, Hugh, as primarily fan service for your followers. All right, so that's pretty snide, right? That's not a, hey, do you really mean this? But then he got his insult in, so he said, but pretending to take it at face value for a moment, is the Financial Times really more to your liking than the Journal? And the answer is, it's going to be, unless you get rid of this nonsense, this ridiculous, hyper-partisan reporting. Because as I explained to him online, the Financial Times, all right, it's a British newspaper, and they can be forgiven when they get stuff wrong. I don't read Edward Luce and their crazy columnists, but they, as far as I can tell, they report the news. They tell me what's going on. If they were writing about the outbreak of the fever in the Democratic Republic, it would have nothing to do with Donald Trump, because it has nothing to do with Donald Trump. And I can't help Gerard Baker overcome the burden that his paper has put on him. He's proud of his newspaper. He did a great job as editor. It used to be a great newspaper, and it's starting to stumble, like everything else has collapsed. Why is legacy media collapsing? I think Trump broke so many people. I think they hired a lot of young people who don't know anything. I certainly bring a lawyer's perspective to this of being able to spot BS. And I just got to say, editors, step up, or there's not going to be anything left. Owners, do the Bezos thing and take control, or there's not going to be anything left. You're like General Motors heading towards BK. That's what's going to happen to you. Everyone's going to be gone. And it's not like you weren't warned. The bell that tolled at the beginning of this, it's tolling for you if you're in legacy media. Jobs are gone, platforms are dying, because there's a lot of good free media, including this program and this monologue, that's out there and that is unafraid to tell the truth and to praise the good on the left when it's good and to uphold and find in the next generation of great reporters and writers. Stay tuned.